Welcome to another episode of my podcast on effective teamwork, Agility Pills. Today we're going to talk about the non-violent communication. Imagine a typical morning in a project. A team of programmers sits in front of their computers, a deadline looms, and the atmosphere thickens. Suddenly, a frustrated tester says, "Here we go again. This module is completely unfinished." You always have to break something. You know that, right? We all do. It's a classic example of a message that, although it may convey emotions, builds a wall rather than a bridge. At such a moment, if we had NVC tools at our disposal, the situation could have turned out completely differently. Nonviolent communication, created by Marshall Rosenberg, is more than a communication technique, it is a philosophy based on empathy and respect for other people. It is the language of the giraffe, as it is sometimes figuratively called, in contrast to the language of the jackal, which judges, criticizes, and blames. The key to NVC is understanding that there are needs behind every action we take. These needs are universal for all people: the need for safety, acceptance, autonomy, development, etc. So when we hear criticism, instead of immediately defending or attacking, we can try to figure out what need is hidden behind our interlocutor's words. Returning to our tester, instead of throwing accusations, he could express his feelings and needs in a more constructive way. For example, when I see these errors in the module, observation, I feel frustrated and worried, feelings, because I care about delivering a high-quality product to the customer, need. Could we talk about how we can improve the testing process to avoid such situations in the future? Request. Do you see the difference? Instead of attack, we have an open proposal for dialogue. Instead of blaming, focus on the solution. I remember a certain situation from one of my teams. We had a problem with delivering tasks on time. One of the programmers, let's call him Yannick, was constantly late. Instead of criticizing him and pointing out his delays, I decided to talk to him in the spirit of NVC. It turned out that Yannick had problems with organizing his work and needed support in planning tasks. Thanks to an open conversation and understanding his needs, we managed to work out a strategy together that helped him improve his efficiency. What happens when we forget about NVC? We return to the jackal language. We start to judge, criticize, blame. Mutual relations deteriorate, the atmosphere becomes tense, and the team's efficiency decreases. Instead of cooperation, we have competition; instead of trust, suspicion. I remember how once, in another project, the lack of NVC led to a serious conflict between two programmers. It started with a minor argument about the code, and ended with personal attacks and long-term hostility. The losses for the project were huge. NVC is not a magic wand that will solve all problems. It is a process that requires practice and patience. Sometimes it is difficult to refrain from judgment and express your feelings openly and honestly. But it is worth trying. It is worth investing in building relationships based on empathy and respect. After all, as Rosenberg used to say, all human beings have the same needs. And when we are able to recognize and respect them, communication becomes much easier and more fruitful. Benefits of NVC. NVC helps build deeper and more empathetic relationships with other people. It allows you to resolve conflicts in a peaceful and constructive way. It helps you better understand your own feelings and needs. It reduces the tendency to use verbal and emotional violence. NVC is an effective communication tool that can be used in various areas of life, both in personal and professional relationships. It requires practice and patience, but it brings tangible benefits in building satisfying relationships with other people. Alexander Koska Agile Institute.